Okay guys, my name is Judas Phi Gates of Maestros Missionarios, and here we are. I have been doing marketing for 22 years and I will share my experience, and this is one of the most important lessons that you are going to learn in your life. I'm going to talk about the compound effect. Everything counts. The compound effect is always on. Okay, this is a very important principle. Most people, when they think about the compound effect, they think about investing in stocks, for example. So, if they invest in a stock and as time goes by, the interest increases and everything begins to compound over time. But the reality is that this doesn't only happen in stocks. The compound effect is a constant of this reality. So, every time that you're breathing, the compound effect is working its magic. So, what we are going to see here is how do we use this principle of reality to our advantage? Everybody wants to make more money. Well, let's use the compound effect so that we can create more wealth. So, we have 5 key areas: the unforgiving law, the personal foundation, your inner compound, the external engine, your outer compound, the professional edge, your craft compound, and the vigilance mandate. So, the unforgiving law. Reality compounds everything, both excellence and mediocrity. Time multiplies your habits, not intentions. You cannot escape the mathematics of your decisions. Motion is constant. The key question is direction. Compounding is ruthlessly unforgiving, accelerating success or failure. So, the first principle is that you cannot escape the compound effect. You cannot escape the compound effect. This means that every second of your life that you invest in negativity or mediocrity, you are expanding that. So you don't want negativity, right? You don't want mediocrity. You don't want problems. So every millisecond invested in negativity, in problems, in mediocrity will give you more of that. This is why we have to be very, very fast and very resilient. So if you experience a negative experience, you have to flip it and get yourself together fast, immediately. You have to stand up again, because if you don't, you're investing in a negative reality. Okay, so the compound effect is always on. It is working for you or against you all the time. Nobody can escape the compounding principle, okay? The compound effect, nobody can escape it. So we have to be extremely aware, okay? So that is the unforgiving law of the compound effect. Now, the personal foundation, your inner compound. Every rep, every repetition, every rep deposits strength in your future self. Each meal is an investment, vitality or debt. Each meal is an investment, vitality or debt. What you mentally consume engineers your core logic. Habits are compound interest on your potential. Micro optimizations forge character and destiny. So, here we are focusing on the inner compound, what is going on within you. So everything we do is shaping our future self. Everything we do, everything we eat is an investment, or it gives us vitality, or it destroys our health. So everything matters. This is why I talk about the holistic wealth concept that I teach to my best students, because everything matters. Of course, you have to think about your business, but you also have to think about your health. Yes? Like I always share the E.A.S.I pyramid. We have the E.A.S.I pyramid, we have E.A.S.I. We have energy, action, systems, and identity. So this is the E.A.S.I pyramid. Everything begins with your energy, then you have to enter into a state of flow state, lots of action, then you build systems to make it easier, and all of this shapes your own identity. So every rep deposits strength in your future self. You are always creating your future self. Forget about the present. Forget about the present moment. One of the biggest flaws that we have as humans is that we overvalue the present moment. Of course, you have to live in the moment and you have to take action in the moment. The present is important, but the future also is important. So you are always building something. Most people think short term, but it is far better to think long term, okay? So every rep deposits strength in your future self. Each meal is an investment, vitality or debt. What you mentally consume engineers your core logic. Pay attention to what content are you consuming. Habits are compound interest on your potential, okay? Your potential will improve if your habits are well chosen. Micro optimizations forge character and destiny. Micro optimizations. Small details matter. Small details matter a lot. And all of this forges your character, therefore your destiny. Okay, so that's the compound effect when we see it through the lens of your inner self. Now, next, the external engine, your outer compound. Every dollar managed programs your financial intelligence. Your environment hypnotizes your default identity. Networks compound. Today's connection, tomorrow's catalyst. Trust compounded over time outperforms any currency. Now, this is the external engine. So every dollar managed programs your financial intelligence. Every decision that you make, every small optimization in your business, every time you're optimizing your numbers, all of that develops, shapes your financial intelligence. Your environment hypnotizes your default identity. So the majority of your time, where are you spending that time? Is that environment conducive to something powerful? Is that environment helpful or not? Is that environment ideal to create the reality that you want to create? Okay, so your environment, this can be literally your physical environment or your mental environment. Networks compound. Today's connection, tomorrow's catalyst. So that is also very important, the quality of your networks. And this one is very hard because it is very hard to find people that are committed. So networks also compound. So you have to pay attention and dedicate time to the quality of your networks. Trust, compounded over time, outperforms any currency. And this is why we have to build high quality connections with people, because everything depends on trust, the quality of our trust. So if you think long term and you build trust, you're going to become very powerful, because most people do not. Very few people think long term, everybody thinks short term. If you think short term, you're thinking small. The solution is to think long term. Do not think short term, okay? So, networks compound. Trust compounded over time outperforms any currency. This is very hard, but usually the things that are the hardest are the things that work the best. Okay? Now, next, we have the professional edge, your craft compound. Daily grind compounds into tomorrow's competitive advantage. Consistent creation makes your brand the best option. Tiny systemic optimizations yield massive future gains. Every task completed builds your portfolio's fortress. Daily grind compounds into tomorrow's competitive advantage. So daily grind. When I talk about the daily grind, I'm talking about the three elements. We have G, which is grit. Then we have the unstoppable drive. And then we have the vicious tenacity. So this is G.U.T. G-U-T. You have grit, unstoppable drive, and we have vicious tenacity. What is grit? G-R-I-T. Grit is when you take action with passion, perseverance, and long-term commitment. So passion, perseverance, long-term commitment. That is grit. G-U-T. Grit, unstoppable drive, and vicious tenacity. So, daily grind compounds into tomorrow's competitive advantage. So the harder you push every day, forget about today. You're building a better tomorrow. You're building a better self, your future self. Consistent creation makes your brand the best option. If you produce content all the time, every time you produce, and you are completely dedicated, serious, constant, your brand becomes very powerful, okay? Tiny systemic optimizations. Systemic optimizations. What do I mean? You must have a conscious strategic process where you optimize things. It is like, okay, I do this, then I do this, then I do this. You have to be very methodical. very practical. Tiny systemic optimizations yield massive future gains. Every task completed builds your portfolio's fortress. So everything you do matters. Okay, so what we are seeing here is that the compound effect is a powerful principle of reality. And if you want more money, more wealth, more personal power, you have to use this force in your favor. And here we are seeing how. Okay, make sure that your habits are vibrating in excellence. If your habits vibrate in excellence, you are doing things correctly. Now, the personal foundation, your inner compound, each rep deposits strength in your future self. Each meal is an investment. That is why in the energy here, in the E.A.S.I pyramid, energy is the foundation. And energy depends on the food that you eat and the daily exercise and the time that you invest in learning how to have a powerful health, okay? So every repetition, every rep deposits strength in your future self. Each meal is an investment, vitality or debt. What you mentally consume engineers your core logic. Subconsciously, what you consume dictates your reality. Habits are compound interest on your potential. Everything you do either builds or harms your own potential. Micro-optimizations forge character and destiny. Small, little upgrades, adjustments, improvements forge character and therefore destiny. Next, we have the external engine. Every dollar managed programs your financial intelligence. Your environment hypnotizes your default identity. Networks compound today's connection, tomorrow's catalyst. Trust compounded over time outperforms any currency. From all of this, pay attention to the quality of your networks, okay? And be very, very sharp with the numbers in your business. Pay attention to the numbers. Pay attention to the numbers. The more proficient, the more organized you are with your numbers, that will produce a compounding effect that will be highly beneficial over time. The professional edge, your craft compound. Daily grind compounds into tomorrow's competitive advantage. So make sure you push with grit, passion, perseverance, long-term commitment, unstoppable drive, and vicious tenacity. Consistent creation makes your brand the best option. Tiny systemic optimizations yield massive future gains. Every task completed builds your portfolio's fortress. Everything you do matters. Everything you do matters. So, if you say, I will create this amount of videos, this amount of content, make sure you never fail. Make sure you are always present, always show up. Do what needs to be done. And all of your contents will build your portfolio, okay? Last, the Vigilance Mandate. Daily habits are 10-year contracts with reality. Your daily habits are creating a specific timeline, a specific future. So become aware that what you're doing today will have a real effect in your future, okay? Flaws compound in shadow. Eliminate them. What does this mean? Well, the things that you are not aware of, the things that you are doing wrong, if you don't wake up and become aware that you're doing things incorrectly, those things will also compound. So you have to become aware of the things that you're doing wrong, because if you don't, you're going to be creating a future that you don't want to create. So everything compounds. Everything that you're doing correctly compounds. Everything you're doing incorrectly also compounds. Comfort feeds scarcity. Greed compounds lasting wealth. So if you feel comfortable, you are creating scarcity. You're creating poverty. So you have to understand that greed equals wealth. The more you execute with intense greed every day, the better you will be in the future. Strong consistency today writes the legend you create. Okay? Strong consistency today writes the legend you create. Okay, so this is the core principle. The most important thing from all of this is that we are not aware. We are not aware that everything we do matters. We are not aware. And we become more lazy, we become more comfortable, and we say, well, it doesn't matter. But it does matter, because the compound effect is always on. So, reality compounds everything. This is omnipresent. This is always working for you or against you. So, how do we use the compound effect in our favor? Well, one of the things that you have to truly dedicate a lot of time is the creation, the selection of your daily habits. A lot of people do have some habits, but most people, they are very repetitive, and the idea is to make sure that your habits are evolving. If your habits are evolving, it means that you are improving the quality of your habits, which will ultimately make you create a better future self, a better version of yourself. So, we have to think deeply in how do we improve and make sure that our daily habits are really getting better, and better. The majority of the people say, okay, these are my habits, this is what I'm going to do, and they execute and they stay in that pattern. That pattern, if you choose it correctly, it will be a helpful pattern, and it will help you to stay on track. But what I recommend is to dedicate some time to think deeply and say, okay, how can I really change these habits so that I really win in this life? How can I really win? How can I really have a significant competitive advantage? Okay? If you are truly committed to this, if you're truly committed to the evolution of your daily habits, you are always going to find new, different habits that are exponentially more powerful. You are always going to find new ways to do things. And you have to understand that the more you improve your habits, the more conscious you become, the more stronger you become. Therefore, the habits that you're going to choose are going to be more complex, more advanced. And when you're starting out, you can't choose those habits because you don't have the strength and you don't have the experience to understand that those habits are really necessary. So everything is related. Of course, if you are starting out, the more advanced habits are going to be completely out of your reality because you aren't at that level yet. So we have to be able to see the future and to use our intuition and be able to say, okay, I don't know what are the ideal habits, because we are always operating from our level of wisdom that we have at that moment. So we are wise in a way, and also we are ignorant in a way. There are many things that we know, many things that we don't know. So we are always choosing our habits according to our level of wisdom, our knowledge. We are always doing our very best according to what we have. But if you truly think deeply, you have to say, okay, this is the best I got today. But how can I improve? How can I improve this significantly? Okay? There are always different things that you can do to become more professional. One of the principles that I always talk about is QQF, which is quality, quantity, and frequency. Quality, quantity, and frequency. So, for example, if we're talking about our daily habits, what is the quality of your habits? For example, now, let's place a score from 0 to 100 in your daily habits. What are the three habits that you are executing every day? Well, what is the quality of your habits? How many repetitions? Quantity and frequency. What's your frequency? You can think about the quality of your habits and the quality of your performance also. The truth is that we can always improve. It doesn't matter what it is. The thing is to be always improving all the time. Okay? So yes, this is a very good explanation, a deeper explanation to understand why habits are so important? Now, there is also another important thing. Value given in advance is required for influence. If you're building networks, you always have to give value up front. Always. Okay? If you're building networks, you always have to give value up front. In fact, in everything you do, you always have to give value up front. This is why consistent creation makes your brand the best option. If you are the one that delivers the highest value, you are the best option there is. So yes, value given in advance is required for influence. Daily habits are 10-year contracts with reality. Everything you do shapes your future, shapes your reality. Motion is constant. The key question is direction. What is your direction? What is it that you truly want to create? What is it that you truly want to create? What is your ideal future identity? What habits will that person execute daily? And then you do your best to match that reality. Of course, in the beginning, you won't be able to execute those habits, but at least you're doing your best, okay? You're doing your best to match that ideal performance, okay? So this principle is very important because if we are extremely aware that everything we do matters, we are going to be wiser in the selection of the habits. This is why we become wiser, and wiser, more conscious and more conscious and more conscious and more conscious. And as you become more and more conscious and more wise, you will surely change your habits. You're going to change your habits because you become more aware. You say, no, this habit is more important than this one. This habit is more important than this one. And as you become stronger and stronger and stronger, you're going to say, okay, I can handle this. I can handle this. I can handle this. Okay? So a lot of people do have habits, but they don't dedicate time to the evolution of the habits. You can also have very specific processes so that you actually can make optimizations. And that is one of the most advanced things that I teach, that is basically how to think. Because if you think in a more proficient manner, you're going to make optimizations faster. Thinking is about having revelations and optimizations. So the more revelations you have and the more optimizations that arrive in your mind, those ideas will naturally allow you to become more professional in absolutely everything that you do in your everyday life. So improving our quality of thinking is extremely important, okay? Improving our quality of thinking is absolutely super important. Daily grind compounds into tomorrow's competitive advantage. Daily grind compounds into tomorrow's competitive advantage. Okay, what else can we add here? I think one of the most complex things is becoming aware of what we're doing wrong. I think that is one of the hardest of them all. Becoming aware of what we are doing wrong. Sometimes we do know that we are doing things wrong, but we don't know the solution. It is like we become blocked. It is like, oh, I know this is wrong, but I can't find the solution. I can't find the solution. So we are stuck. So, in that case, you are aware of what is going on, which is a good thing. At least you are aware. The big challenge is when you aren't aware and you don't have a clue. So becoming aware of that we aren't aware is one of the hardest skills, but there are solutions to get around that. And the simple way is to ask yourself, what am I not seeing? What am I not seeing? What things am I ignoring? What things should I be paying attention to? And now with artificial intelligence, we can use it so that it can help us to see bottlenecks and things that we are making wrong. Okay, so there are always things that we are making wrong, always. And of course, many of these things you can solve immediately if you become aware, and many of these things maybe you don't have the resources to make it happen. But at least the earlier we become aware, the better. So the core teaching here is we have to become aware of our flaws. We have to become super aware of our flaws fast and make the changes fast. You have to move fast. So, okay, this is wrong, okay, I'm going to do this. This is wrong, I'm going to do this. And maybe you don't have the best solution, the best answer, the best tool, whatever, but at least you are moving in that direction, okay? Because if you truly think about this, what is very likely to happen? If you begin to say, okay, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? If you really think deeply in that direction, you're going to find lots of mistakes. And depending on your character, this can be a very heavy thing to handle, because you're going to see lots of mistakes and you're going to say, okay, I'm doing a lot of stuff wrong. And that can be either super exciting or super depressive. And it depends on your own psychology. But yes, the optimal way to approach that is to say, okay, yes, I'm doing all of this wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And you have to attack each one and solve it one at a time and say, okay, let's chunk it down and let's solve all of this. So yes, in the beginning we are not aware of what we are doing wrong, but if you really pay attention, you're going to find lots of things. So in a way, it is like you consciously become more of a perfectionist, and you begin to judge yourself harder and harder and harder. It is like everything. As you become stronger, as you lift more weights, as you do more reps, as you become more demanding of yourself, of course it will become tougher. But that is the path. I mean, you either toughen up or you don't. You either get better or you don't. So that's the only way to solve this. So if you become more critical and you say, okay, this is wrong, I can do this better, I can do this better, I can do this better. And if you go deep, and if you enjoy the process, you're going to find so many things that you can do differently. But you have to have that mindset. You have to say, okay, what are my current flaws? What would be ideal? How can I find new methods, systems, strategies, philosophies, tools? What are the resources I need? What are the things that I have to learn? What is the wisdom that I need? The skills, the beliefs? So this is something very deep, and usually people only think about business, but there are far too many dimensions and layers. You have the physical side, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, the social, the economical side. There are many layers, and it is truly very complex, and people oversimplify and say, okay, what is my offer? What is my audience? What is my product? And they just think of that. But in reality, it goes much deeper. It goes way deeper. So, to simplify it, your habits shape you. Your habits shape your reality. And what I personally recommend is to make sure that our habits are evolving. And the only way that our habits can evolve is that if we are aware of them. So right now you have positive, beneficial habits, and also you have negative, destructive habits. And many of the negative, destructive habits, maybe you don't recognize them. So you have to be, the only way to recognize them is to become more critical of yourself, to become more of a perfectionist is the only way. So if you have a higher standard, you will naturally begin to become more judgmental of your performance, of what you're doing. You're going to say, oh no, if I truly want to become more professional, I can't do this anymore. I have to do this. I have to do that. So it is something that also compounds. Okay? It is like one thing leads to the other. And of course, everybody wants to make massive jumps, they want to scale, they want to make big quantum leaps, but in reality, it is a step at a time. Okay, so the compound effect is always on. Reality compounds everything, both excellence and mediocrity. Time multiplies your habits, not intentions. You cannot escape the mathematics of your decisions. Motion is constant. The key question is direction. Compounding is ruthlessly unforgiving, accelerating success or failure. Okay, every rep deposits strength in your future self. Each meal is an investment, vitality or debt. What you mentally consume engineers your core logic. Habits are compound interest on your potential. Micro-optimizations forge character and destiny. Every dollar managed programs your financial intelligence. Your environment hypnotizes your default identity. Networks compound today's connection, tomorrow's catalyst. Trust compounded over time outperforms any currency. Value given in advance is required for influence. Daily grind compounds into tomorrow's competitive advantage. Consistent creation makes your brand the best option. Tiny systemic optimizations yield massive future gains. Every task completed builds your portfolio's fortress. Daily habits are 10-year contracts with reality. Flaws compound in shadow, eliminate them. Comfort feeds scarcity. Greed compounds lasting wealth. Strong consistency today writes the legend you create. We have grit, passion, perseverance, long-term commitment, unstoppable drive, vicious tenacity, QQF, quality, quantity, frequency of habits, performance, the E.A.S.I pyramid, E.A.S.I, energy, action, systems, identity. And this is what we have seen today. So if you find value in this information, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment if you want more information like this. If you want one-on-one sessions, you can activate the sales speed mentorships. And the big difference is that, yes, we can talk about the funnels, we can talk about the conversions, the offer, the headlines, the bullet points, the website. We can talk about the things that most people talk about. But in my personal experience, what truly makes us win in life is a holistic approach. So everything has to be aligned. Everything has to be aligned in a way so that you can win. Because maybe you have the offer, maybe you have the systems in place, but you don't have the energy, okay? You don't have the correct action, the daily discipline. You don't have the systems in place. The systems, what do I mean by systems? You have your personal systems, your habits, and the business systems as well. Maybe you don't understand the ideal identity that is required so that you actually make things happen. So the real way to move forward is by having a holistic approach, okay? Not only to focus on, oh, what is the script? What do I say? Because limited thinking leads us to limited results. And what we want is to have optimal results. We want to win big. We want to understand, okay, what truly works. And what works is when we have all of the factors in place, aligned, and everything clicks and works. So if you like this information, you can activate the sales speed mentorships. And if you want my B2B sales predictable system, sales system, the meetings, if you want meetings in a consistent basis, you can have, for example, 28 sales meetings every 88 days for 12K. You can find that offer in my website, in the information of these videos. So I basically offer the mentorships, the sales speed mentorships, and if you want a system where we basically find leads and make sure that you get sales meetings with qualified leads, we can give you 28 sales meetings every 88 days for 12K if your business is B2B. Okay? If your business is B2B, if you are a consultant or a fractional executive, that offer, you can see it in the description. So, in short, what is the most important thing from all of this? The most important thing from all of this is the evolution of your habits. Of course, first of all, understand that the compound effect is always on. Now, once we understand that the compound effect is always on, we have to make sure that our habits are evolving. Your habits must evolve. And that is a key factor here. If your habits are not evolving, you are not evolving. So if your habits are not getting better, you are not getting better. And that's the end of all. That's the bottom line. If your habits are not evolving, you are not evolving. If you are not evolving, you are not getting richer. So if you want more money, if you want more wealth, if you want more personal power, you have to focus on the evolution of your daily habits. That is key. The evolution of your daily habits. Most people talk about the perseverance, which is okay. But if you are very perseverant in a set of habits that are not evolving, yes, that is better than nothing, but the true progress is when your habits are evolving. So, in order to make sure that the compound effect works in your favor, make sure that your daily habits are evolving. They are becoming more demanding, more complex. They require more energy, more proficiency, more skills. your habits must become harder to execute. That is so key to understand, because most people talk about habits, but they don't talk about the evolution of the habits, and that is extremely important. And understand that if you are constantly evolving your habits, you have to comprehend that you can't know the future. Maybe you have a certain intuition of your direction, but you truly don't know, because if you're truly evolving, everything changes a lot, and that is also a very rare advanced skill that nobody talks about, because nobody achieves that level of evolution. If you're evolving, your identity changes, and your skills change, your wisdom change, your beliefs change, everything changes so much. And that is why most people never change, because we don't change because we feel comfortable. But that sense of comfort destroys your evolution. Like I said, comfort feeds scarcity. So if you have an identity, if you have a set of habits and you feel comfortable with those habits, you are vibrating on scarcity, not wealth. So a lot of people don't understand that maybe you are pushing yourself very hard. Maybe you are operating on high levels of grit in comparison to other people. But as a matter of fact, when you push yourself and you push yourself and you push yourself, and you become used to that level of commitment, that also becomes a comfort. So if you truly want to become excellent, you have to understand that you have to be constantly pushing yourself to another level. That's the way it is. So you have to enjoy the grind and enjoy the process where you're becoming tougher and tougher and tougher. Okay? So basically what I'm saying here is that you have to enjoy the process where things are getting more complex, more tough, more demanding, and also you have to become accustomed to the fact that things change and change and change and change. Your priorities change, your strategies change, everything changes, and you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with the fact that things change and things change. Because most people don't like so many changes. So this is a thing that you have to train your mind, your mental muscle. Your mental muscle must be okay with the fact that things change and change and change. Of course, when you're playing out specific strategies long term, you must be constant. There are many things that must remain in order for you to have success, of course. But also, if you're truly pushing yourself, there are lots of unexpected turns and changes and things that you didn't imagine that were going to happen. So you have to be okay with those changes, okay? So as you become more experienced, you're going to be able to anticipate better the changes and the things that you need in order to become more professional. I hope you find this video highly valuable, hit like, subscribe, and if you want to activate the sales speed mentorships one-on-one, I can help you get more discipline, perseverance, grit, attitude, energy. We can work on your funnels, your offers, anything you want. Understand that my approach is holistic, and obviously, if you don't care about your energy, I won't talk about that, but of course I recommend having a holistic approach and working hard on where you're weakest. Because, for example, if you're very low on energy, nothing's going to happen, okay? No amount of technique or strategy will work if you don't have nothing of energy, okay? So my name is Judas Gate. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Hit like, subscribe, and if you want 28 sales meetings every 88 days for 12K, you can also activate that sales system for your business. See you next time. Judas Phi Gates.